Now, we're only a few weeks away from the Lismore Imrama Festival of Travel Writing. Closing out the festival on Sunday, the 14th of June, is an artist and author. He has quite a story and quite a life, and I'm delighted to say he joins me on the line now, Gerard Taylor. Gerard, good afternoon. Good evening, rather, to you.
Good evening to you.
Gerard, let me start first of all by saying, obviously it's a festival of travel writing, but you kind of got all the travel out of your system very early on in your life, didn't you?
I did. Following my father's footsteps, I joined the Merchant Navy and then travelled the world, really. And then, eventually after a few years, I ended up painting murals around the world in different places, like Saudi Arabia and Barbados and those kind of places. I had a lot of travelling.
You are very noted as a mural painter. What in your travels? What was the inspiration for your murals? What caught your eye?
Well, I decided very early on that I would work in the sense for the client. So I would talk to the client. Generally, they're very rich people, or they're designers, and I would get what they wanted, and then I would produce something that went with what they wanted. And I'd take from all kinds of periods of art, really, from Roman art to pre-Raphaelites to modern art, to Picasso or whatever. So I would use all kinds of arts, really, to kind of make up the murals that were needed.
So it was a collaboration then between you and the person who commissioned the work?
That's right, yeah. Or sometimes I never met them, and sometimes it's just with their designer, as I say. So it's an interesting life as well, because, I met some very unusual people, very demanding people as well sometimes.
Well, I would imagine some people buying murals might be a bit very specific in what they need.
Yep.
How did it influence you working with these people? Well, you said you'd pick a particular style. How would you go about picking the style? What would kind of influence that?
Well, generally they just had a rough idea of what they wanted. And I'm particularly good at painting figures and animals and landscapes. So I would steer them towards certain things which I know would work, and it seemed to work. People liked what I did, and then they'd come back for more things. A particular case was the Sandy Lane Hotel. I did work there and in Barbados, and the owner Dermot Desmond liked it, and he asked me to come and do his house as well in London. So that kind of worked.
When you're painting something like a mural, obviously you're operating on usually anyway, I would imagine, a very broad canvas, so to speak. Yeah,
literally.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would actually paint a canvas, a huge canvas in my studio, or a big warehouse if it was that big. And then I'd roll it up and send it out to wherever, and then I'd go out and have it hung and touch it up, sort of thing. But if it's ceilings, then generally I had to be there up a scaffolding, creaking me neck, painting the ceilings.
And how long would that take, Gerard?
Oh, it just really varied. I mean, I think the Barbados one I was on for about a couple of months. There's one I did in a hotel in Bath, took me about a month, but that was like working day and night because they wanted it finished. So it just really varied depending on what they wanted. Sometimes it's just a small wall, so it just varied.
Did you adhere much to health and safety? How was your back? Back's okay. The neck's not so good. I didn't take any notice of health and safety. It's funny you should ask that, because I was asked to do a mural in a lift shaft in somebody's house. It's a 5-story house, and a glass lift in a shaft that went up with windows looking into the rooms, and I had to paint a mural from the base right to the very top. And the company that supplied the lift refused to turn the lift off. It shouldn't happen. So I just went ahead and did it anyway. Was just scared stiff the whole time. You did it?
Yeah, I did it. Yeah.
How did you actually? How do you approach that? I mean, I would imagine you've got to work very quickly.
Yeah, and very gingerly. I was waiting for any moment for the lift to go and for me to sort of, just to end my days, really. There's not much I could do, I just had to sort of bite my lip and do it, But I got paid in the end, and I survived, so it's all okay.
Now, unfortunately, you had an illness back in 2012 and lost the sight in one eye.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, don't paint the murals anymore.
No.
I'd imagine that was very difficult to let go.
Well, it was difficult in one sense, but I had no choice because I became so ill. There was, I couldn't even attempt to do any work, ironically, what happened was it gave me the chance because I couldn't work, I couldn't climb scaffoldings or ladders, to go back to the book that I've always wanted to write, that I started in 1982. This book that I'm here for. And it gave me the chance, I was in hospital for a while and I was sort of laid up for a while and I was just writing and drawing like crazy, to get this finished. So in a way it was a blessing, a blessing in disguise, as it were. And I'm quite pleased not to deal with the business side of things, dealing with business people and rich people is not always, a happy business. So I've done what I want to do. Again, I've managed to do that all my life, is to do what I want to do, really, and the book was it. So I'm quite pleased with that.
Now, the book itself, it's you are talking at Lismore. It talks about your connections with Lismore. Yes,
yeah. Well, my connection was through my mother. My mother was Annie Collins before she got married from Botany in Lismore, and the beginning of the story is the fact that I when she died, I realised that I knew very little about Lismore. She hadn't told me much, and I had one great uncle still alive, that, of that generation, and Joe Collins, his name was, and I went and saw him in London, and he just told me lots and lots of stuff that, I recorded his voice, luckily, and I still have it, and I found out about lots of relatives back in Lismore that I didn't know I had, in the past, that is, I found out that great-great-grandfather Bartholomew Lawton, who was, one of the people that conspired to kill his landlord, Kylie Usher, and he was sent to Bermuda, which doesn't sound like a bad deal, does it? But he was doing hard labour. I found out lots about my family.
As you mentioned that, you started this back in 1982.
Yeah.
So it's around about 30 years in the works before you actually finish it. What was it like? First of all, was it just a case that you kind of kept picking up, putting it down, picking up, putting it down? I'd finish it one day, that kind of thing.
Kind of, but because I had no choice really, because I was so busy with the murals and just working, that I just had to kind of keep more or less all of it going in my head. And I was getting lots of ideas and getting frustrated as well. But I also have always painted. Even when I'm working, I do canvases. And what I realised, is from 1982, a lot of the canvases I've been painting were illustrations of the story. I didn't actually put the two together at the time, but so in a way, I was working on it all the time.
Subconsciously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the paintings are often subconscious kind of paintings. So they married together at the end, I think, anyway, quite well.
And what was it like to kind of trace back, discovering this huge family connection and tracing back your roots?
It was great. I mean, it was just a journey of a lifetime, really, I suppose. And that was like a few journeys in different ways. But no, I loved it, and I also got to meet some great people in Lismore that knew Joe, like Paddy Vaughan, and I also the best thing was I met my great aunt Lizzie Collins just not long before she died. She was 99 years old when I met her, and this is back in 1983, I guess, or 84. And she was had just a whole raft of stories and songs and poems and all kinds of stuff, and I recorded her voice as well. So yeah, it was kind of almost monumental for me to discover all this, because I'd been brought up not knowing about Ireland, not knowing about their family connections, and but at the same time believing myself to be, Irish, because we everything in the house was about that sort of that culture. So it's quite an odd thing, really.
Yes, well, I know that feeling well. Growing up in London, having Irish relatives or becoming that connection, there's always a kind of additional appeal for it, a mystery to discover as well. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think it was a mystery, and I also, found out about the kind of local folklore and the belief in some of the sort of older beliefs that I'd heard my mother talk about sometimes, and so that it was always just incredibly interesting. Yeah, but Joe threw a lot of light on all of that just in that first day that I met him. As I say, interviewed him as well. I mean, recorded him as well. But there was a lot to sort of pick up and learn. Yeah.
And now you get to present that at the Courthouse Theatre Sunday, 14th of June in Lismore.
That's right. Yeah, which I just can't believe how lucky I am to be able to do that. The other thing that I can't believe is that that part of Joe's story during the War of Independence was that he actually climbed up a ladder with petrol cans attached to his shoulders into the courthouse in Lismore and set fire to it. So, so Joe managed to get rid of the first one. It belonged to the Duke of Devonshire, I believe. And this is, and so now